Well, hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. My name is Juliette and I will be your host. Please note that everyone is on mute, so if you have any questions during the presentation, you can use the chat window and we will address any question during an open Q&A session at the end. Okay, let's begin with an introduction of today's speakers. Jeff, would you like to start?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for being here today. So I'm Olivier Renaud, Microsoft specialist and technical sales manager at GSX.
Okay, so maybe let's take a look at the agenda for today. The purpose, of course, is to speak about IronPort, for sure, how to monitor it, how to troubleshoot it as well. For that, we will quickly explain who we are first and why we are interested in IronPort monitoring. Then we will explain the differences between a manual troubleshoot and a GSX troubleshoot on two common issues that happen in most messaging environments. We will conclude with general sum up of the benefits of the GSX solution, followed by, of course, a Q&A session. So please do not hesitate to post your question in the chat window. So let's start by a few words about GSX. Maybe some of you already know us. It's now 20 years that we provide agentless monitoring for our customers. Our presence is a bit everywhere in the world. We have 2 offices in the US, we have 3 offices in Europe, and 2 other ones in the APAC region. We have now 600 customers, mostly large to very large, and that rely on our product to monitor their infrastructure. So in 20 years, we have gone through a lot of technologies, and we have developed expertises in Microsoft, IBM, management device solution. We are, of course, a Microsoft partner, member of the TAP, that tests their new releases before any customer. So we've developed tools and services that were always dedicated to messaging, collaboration, and communication infrastructure. That's why we naturally came to IronPort monitoring. So a few words about the GSX Monitor Philosophy. So right before going to the IronPort troubleshooting, I want to explain you a bit what is GSX Monitor. As I told you before, GSX is providing its customer with agentless monitoring solutions that are designed to test application as a user would do. On top of that, we collect every necessary statistic to troubleshoot any issue. Our goal is to offer an end-to-end solution to monitor everything that can impact the messaging and collaboration environment. GSX solution products monitor the email security appliance, and we will see IronPort today, the load balancer, the management device application, and of course, the messaging and collaboration application on-premise, hybrid, or in the cloud from IBM and Microsoft. So everything about Exchange, everything about Office 365, and we will see that a little bit during the demo. Our monitoring and reporting is first based on end-user scenarios and infrastructure health check. It gives you an end-to-end view of how your appliance and application are working from an administrator, but also from an end-user perspective. That's really a big strength of GSX. Benefits are proactive alerts, real-time troubleshooting, as well as trend and reporting that enable you to identify patterns, bottlenecks, and potential issues. So now that we have seen a bit better who you are listening to, let's speak about IronPort and what we've seen at our customer. So why is it critical to monitor IronPort? Well, as IronPort is a security device, your first concern should be its constant availability. As any security device, when it goes off, it is the entire system that shuts down in order to avoid any security concern in your infrastructure. That gives you a very good reason to ensure high availability. And monitoring is definitely a part of a high available environment. And in order to provide an efficient monitoring, you need to have a tool that does not rely on IronPort availability itself. Otherwise, you lose your monitoring and statistics when you face serious issues. So the problem is that downtime is not the only issue. The most common one is performance issue. And as IronPort has huge impact on your messaging environment, any performance problem will directly impact your user and the entire system. On top of that, when you have a latency issue in your environment, it is usually difficult to know that your IronPort is the root cause of the problem. For that, you need to perform extensive tests on each of your IronPorts, and all of that costs you a lot of time, especially during the moment where you have issues. So it's really critical to be able to have that external view that shows you the problem exactly where it is. Finally, IronPort processes a ton of email every day. And this is a key instrument for you to know if your system is used properly. For example, does your company send millions of spam? Will your spam ranking be affected in the near future? Does the marketing department make too many email campaigns? All this information can be found in the IronPort statistics. That is also why it is so critical not only to monitor the availability and health of your IronPort, but also its usage. So now that this little introduction has been done, I will let Oliver explaining you real example of IronPort monitoring and troubleshooting. Oliver?
Thank you, Jeff. So so I've prepared two examples, two kind of use cases to go through in order to see what's possible, what you can do with an IronPort built-in features, how you can check, and then we will compare with GSX Monitor in particular today, and how that would go if you had GSX. So first example is troubleshooting an email delivery problem. So the symptom is pretty basic. So outbound mail is not being delivered to an external company. So first question is I want to highlight is how did you hear about it? So most likely, if you don't have an entire monitoring system in place, it's going to be user detection, right? That's your first level of monitoring when you don't have anything in place. So users have complained, they've probably called the IT help desk. The help desk have probably investigated the issue. So they started to look at the messaging servers. They were able to see that all these mail servers had delivered the messages. So what happened then? Well, they escalated the issue to the messaging admins. So this is you, right? So once it's escalated to you, you have a few options. So maybe you have some tools or scripts in place. You have the web user interface that you can use from IronPort, or you can also try to use the CLI commands, which is what I'm going to highlight today. So we will go through some of the troubleshooting steps, explaining a little bit what we're looking at, what are these different metrics, and how most likely you would be trying to troubleshoot that issue. So let's take a look at the CLI. So I've already connected to one IronPort. So if we look at one command from here, so first, why am I using the CLI? Well, so you could be looking at the web user interface. I kind of like to use the CLI because you are sure that what you're looking at is the statistics of right now, at the instant that you've run the command. This is not something that's true in the web user interface. Cisco tells that themselves. So good practice to use the CLI if you're looking to troubleshoot something that just happened. So if you go and type status detail, for example, you can see a few information. So first thing is the system status. So you can see it's online. So this IronPort appliance is supposed to be able to accept connection and deliver emails. You have a few statistics, your features, some counters. But so what we want to focus on right now is probably more the gauges. So if I scroll down a little bit here, you can see that we have some gauges for just the connections in queue. So I actually need to go more details. So status detail, yes. So here it is. So when you do status detail, you have more information. So let's take a look again now. So the gauges, first things to look at is probably just the system resources. So we can see here it's pretty much low usage. So it should not be the source of the issue here, right? Not the source of a delivery problem. Also, these gauges about performance are probably the only alerts that you can get built in from the IronPort, where you can be alerted on a couple of metrics like the CPU. So next thing to take a look at would be the connections. So here you can see inbound and outbound. So first thing to notice is that inbound and outbound here means inbound will be any external IP connecting to the IronPort, and outbound will be any connection from the IronPort to an external IP. So what you see here are only successful connections. So here, this is our lab environment. There's not any connections right now, but in your environment, connecting to any IronPort appliance, you should see some non-zero values here, meaning that you're actively receiving and delivering emails. Okay? That number of connections can actually be pretty important, pretty high value, because basically the ESA, so the IronPort, will automatically open as many connections as it needs to deliver mail efficiently. So of course that's subject to some limits that are set on the system or on the algorithm that are used. So next thing to look at would be the queue. So let's check here, you see active recipients. So here, that's a count of all the recipients on all messages that have completed filtering and are basically waiting to be delivered. So you can think of that as some kind of delivery queue, although the IronPort does not really use a disk or memory queue to store them. But it's the same concept. So if there is a problem with a remote server, recipients are counted here until these messages will be delivered, or if it exceeds the maximum time, and then they're bounced. So what could be the potential causes here? The host could be down, not responding, or refusing, rejecting connection, or the IronPort could have hit the maximum number of connections opened. So here, definitely something to look at. We're going to further investigate in the next command. Just before finishing off this section, another very important thing to look at are the messages in the work queue. So I assume you're all familiar with that. Why is it very important? Because this will be a count of all the messages that are awaiting processing. So before they go through the anti-spam, antivirus, content filtering, all the different features that you use for your IronPort appliances, these messages will be here before any work is performed. So that can sometimes be a performance bottleneck, and this is very important to look at. So if you have some non-zero value here, it can be a good indication of a max throughput, at least for the current instance that we're looking at. Again, that's why I want to use the CLI command so that you have the real-time statistics. So another thing to look at will be top host. So let's check a list of top hosts for the active recipients. That was what we were looking at. You can see here different hosts, which means domains. And you can see here, for example, number one, GSX.lab. I see I have a lot of active recipients. So this is not being delivered. This is the issue. This is most likely the issue related to the symptom. If I want to look a little bit more into that specific host, I can do host status, GSX lab. And what does it say here? Well, it brings all the statistics for that particular host. And first thing I see here is that it's down. So the issue is on the remote host itself, okay? So, I mean, quick example, you've probably done that a few times already or looked at that in the interface. So it's really interesting to see the different components, different metrics that you can look at. So let's take a look now in GSX Monitor. So it will give you a first overview of what we do for IronPort. So this is our main dashboard. So for this example, let's take a look only at IronPort. So I have here one of the same IronPort that I've just shown you. And we immediately see that there are some issues with mail and licenses, right? So the flow, the different workflow that would have happened is that first, you would have received an alert, right? Right after something happened, an issue occurred on one of your IronPort server appliance, you would have received an alert detailing what has happened. So in that specific example, well, we can see the same thing. So the system here is fine, low resources consumed on the appliance. some issue with the mail, you can see there's no, you can see two numbers on the right of this LED. If there was some items in the work queue and the age of the oldest message. So here there's something about that. And then you can have a quick recap of all the statistics here if you need to have a quick glance at these metrics. But everything would be in the alert message as well. So most likely, you might be able to proactively prevent any users from calling help desk because you would have had the alert. You would have the dashboard, all these different metrics grouped into one place, and that gives you the overview of everything that happens. And we do much more on IronPort, as I will show you in our second example. So let's go back. So just what I wanted to highlight is, of course, these two workflows do the same and arrive at the same conclusion. You heard about an incident and you were able to solve it. But what you need to understand is, what was the user satisfaction in both of these workflows? On the first one, you're waiting for users to complain, to call help desk, and this caused a lot of time to happen, a lot of time to repair that incident, because in between the time that the issue was detected, investigated, escalated to you, then you troubleshoot, then you fix the issue, this is a long time that can happen there. So you want to reduce that time and you want to improve user satisfaction, you need to have some system in place that will gather these metrics automatically and alert you as soon as there is something that should be looked at. So let's take a look at a second example. This is a little bit more generic example in terms of covering a little more than just IronPort. As Jeff explained, IronPort is a very important component within the messaging infrastructure. So sometimes you will have issues or incidents that you don't really know what's the root cause of that issue. So for example, if you have some users calling help desk because they're complaining about latency in the messaging environment. They're saying emails is too slow, you know. So maybe the first user, you might think it's, you know, one of these users constantly pressing send and receive, hoping to be using some kind of synchronous communication system. But actually, let's say several users start complaining, they call help desk, it gets escalated, and you need to start troubleshooting. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to look at different platforms. You're going to look in Exchange. You could even be in a hybrid deployment, right? So you're going to first probably check on-premise or check the location of that mailbox. For on-premise, you're going to do some tests using the Outlook client. You'll probably use PowerShell, look at the different transport queues, do some of your own tests, have a script to send email and check how long it took, do some manual and automated tests. Then you're going to use some tools like the Exchange Remote Connectivity Analyzer. You can use the Office 365 Client Performance Analyzer. You can look at the help dashboard. So you have a lot of places to look at the information. Second thing will be look at the IronPort. So as we've just seen in our example, you can look at the web user interface. You can use the CLI commands, but you will have to do this on each of the IronPorts that you want to investigate on. And last thing, if you don't find anything, it could actually be the network, right? It could be something in your local network, your ISP, some kind of subnet issue. So you're going to use some PowerShell command line tool, do some simple ping traceroute to try to isolate an issue, maybe use some more in-depth network diagnostic tools, check with the network team. So this is a lot of places, a lot of tools to use. So how at GSX we try to help you with that and cover these different aspects. So let's take a look at everything that we can do around messaging. So first, well, if there was some latency in emails, first thing you would have received is probably a mail routing notification. So we are able to perform different mail routing scenarios from any location to another. This ensures a complete round trip going through any steps that will happen in between. So you can do some internal tests in between different mailbox databases, different Exchange servers. You can do complete round trips so that you go through every equipment, including your IronPorts that are in between that process. And not only will make sure that this entire flow is working well, but it will also provide you with metrics on the performance. and it will allow you to keep track of that performance, establish some baseline, and see as you go on, have more users, change your infrastructure, you can see the evolution in terms of performance. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that, as Jeff mentioned, we do a lot of user scenarios, right? So we try as much as possible to give you some metrics that simulate the end user experience. So one of our key scenarios here, for example, are exchange scenarios or active sync scenarios. You can have a detail of all that. You can have another view that we have here that shows you exactly all the different scenarios that we do. So on top of the mail routing, we can open mailbox. We can do every kind of action within the mailbox that allows you to test how it is for a user to create an email, send an email, download some attachments, result some users in the address list. So all on that, not only you can make sure that it works, but you can also get accurate metrics and the evolution of these metrics in daily, weekly, or monthly reports. So that covers, and of course, this is available for Exchange on-premise and also Office 365. So this covers all the Exchange infrastructure. You have a lot of visibility over that. So the other thing is, we mentioned the network. So network is becoming something more and more important as we see, because this can really impact your responsibilities, whether you're full on-premise or if you're in a hybrid or full online environment. So what we've developed for Exchange Online, as a first example, is here you can see some network checks. So we perform a lot of different network diagnostics, simple things like ping, trace route, and also checking port connectivity, TCP response time, DNS resolution. We check some witness, so if you can check the time to your egress point, so like a proxy server internally. And for Office 365, we'll also look at the health of Office 365. So the health dashboard, so that if there is anything that happens there, you want to know, because you don't want to start troubleshooting in your own environment first. We'll also have that module that's coming very soon for on-premise that will be very flexible, but allow you to have that kind of network diagnostic check level coverage. So last thing, and most important because you wanted to see that today, is the IronPort. So we've seen a little bit already how you can be alerted, but what else do we do on IronPort? Well, we check at everything that can impact the performance. So if we look quick check at the wizard for configuration, you can see we'll check the system. So right now we have simple alerts like CPU, RAM, free disk space. We are adding some more metrics here, but basically we want to cover all the resources at the system level. Then we'll cover the mail. So on that first version, we had oldest message, active messages count. We're adding a lot more alerts on the attempted, unattempted recipients, a lot more recipients coverage, as well as per host metrics. DNS, we're doing a lot of things on DNS, especially the cache, which can be responsible for a lot of the performance. And this is very important to look at. So you have these different aspects. We'll look at the license as well, make sure all your features are activated, the hardware, if you're using a hardware appliance. So we try to cover all the different aspects. And not only will give you with the real-time status of all your IronPorts, but you'll be able to receive alerts. You'll be able to have some graphs. So if I check here for IronPort, you can see we have a lot of graphs that you can look at. So for example, you can check the evolution of the CPU, you can check the attempted recipients, and you can see that evolution for up to 3,000 points here in that real-time interface, which goes pretty much back to the past week or 10 days, depending on how often you want to pull these statistics. So really comprehensive and unified dashboard where you can see everything that can have an impact on the messaging service that you provide to your users. So your messaging service, whether it's on-premise Exchange or Office 365, your IronPort appliances, some network checks, and much more if you're also responsible for more collaboration or other application within your environment. So let's go back to the presentation, and Basically, what we have seen in these two examples is that, yes, you do have, always have some tools that are available. So if we focus on IronPort, you do have that web user interface that you can use that will provide a quick glance overview of the status of the ESA. Not necessarily really real time, but it will give you some information. For real time information, you can use the CLI commands. You've seen we've used the status detail, the top host, host status. So these are commands that you should know that can be pretty helpful to troubleshoot some issues. The only limitation with that kind of troubleshooting is this is not very scalable, right? Because we've just connected to one IronPort. So if you have several in your environment, you need to do that for each and every IronPort that you have. It's kind of hard to automate or receive alerts. So some of you will probably tell us that, yes, there are some monitoring features and alerts from IronPort. It's very limited right now. It's only about CPU, RAM, and disk space. You need to have more than that. You need to be able to know about the work queue, about the different recipients, and the different feature on your IronPort. And this needs to be centralized and performing within your environment with the other platforms that you monitor. And the other thing is that it's not really possible to trend that, have availability and usage statistics, or to correlate that with, overall environment statistics. So with using GSX Monitor, you're able to have a centralized dashboard with all your IronPort appliances, provide access to your team, have an alert sent out as soon as something happens so that you can be more proactive in your environment and prevent these users from complaining, and therefore enhancing not only the user satisfaction, but also reducing the time it takes to repair and helping reducing that total cost of ownership. So don't wait for an issue, also to worry about your IronPort health. You need to be constantly looking at these different metrics because if you do, you will be able to be proactive and to help out that service to be delivered efficiently to all your end users.
Well, thank you, Olivier. So let's sum up now quickly the benefit of the solution for IronPort monitoring and troubleshooting. So first thing in that definitely worth a check is the system availability and health. Statistics and alert on key performance indicator, as we have seen, help you with assessing the health of your infrastructure. As you can see, and as Oliver just showed you, we include some license monitoring features in order for you to always be sure that you have all the options that you purchased. So very important point on system availability. Then the IronPort usage statistics. So as we said before, the IronPort usage is critical to monitor as it shows you how your messaging environment is used. So here during the demo and the example, it was really more about troubleshooting the IronPort health. But again, to know how the messaging environment is used is really critical because basically it's the whole load that are going on your IronPort. So it's very important for you to know email flow, number of connections, bound statistics, spam indicators should be carefully analyzed in order to make sure that there is a proper use, again, of this messaging environment. And finally, the last very important part of the IronPort to monitor is the DNS and cache health. So DNS requests, network requests, cache hit and misses, as well as all the exceptions can give you very good information about the health of the IronPort and give you some ability to be really proactive about it. If the cache has problems, the IronPort will be affected and all the users as well. So once again, it's a way for you to directly know where the problem comes from without having to check every IronPort separately to look for a potential issue. So if we go on the last kind of slide before the Q&A session, I just want to give a final general benefit of the GSX for IronPort. But GSX, as you have seen, provides you with a multi-platform dashboard that troubleshoots the entire messaging environment. It does not sit on the IronPort appliance, and then it's always available, even when your IronPort is facing issue. GSX isolates problem, detects when an IronPort issue is affecting the entire environment, and on top of that, we've seen that you are able to really simulate users sending email, users taking action in order to detect instantly any email latency and in order to not to wait for users to complain. So it drastically reduce your mean time to repair. The tool is agentless for every platform: IronPort, Exchange, even Domino, BlackBerry, SQL, all the MDM solution. Everything is always agentless. It means that it is really easy to install and to test, of course, as we don't touch to your IronPort environment. And finally, it makes really the overall troubleshooting of your messaging and IronPort and load balancer and everything really easier, as you have all the information in one view and you have all the alerts proactively. It reduces drastically, again, your mean time to repair and your administration costs. So right before to go to the Q&A session, a few last words about GSX. As I told you, we develop new capabilities every day to monitor and report on the entire infrastructure. IronPort is an example. We are also working on load balancer, as I told you, Active Directory, on-premise, in the cloud, network appliances, and mobility solutions. Once again, the purpose is to offer you this central dashboard for your entire on-premise, hybrid, and cloud environment. So if you have any question about these other capabilities, feel free to ask in the chat window because the Q&A session will start in 2 minutes. So last slide, our products are extremely easy to install, again, extremely easy to test, as we do not install any code on your server. Everything is agentless, so you can download our solution on our website and also benefit from 1 hour with our specialists to help you install and configure the tool to your need for free. So it's time now for the question.
Great, thank you, Jeff. We do have some questions, and you can still ask some in the chat window. The first one is, what are the prerequisites for monitoring IronPort?
Yeah, good question. So most of the information that we'll retrieve using some API from IronPort that will allow us to do pretty much what the CLI does. So we will need to have an account that is able to log in to the web user interface, and that account can be very restricted. It can be only read-only, and that will be sufficient for us to have access to all the data. There are a few features that require SNMP. So this is something that you need to enable on your server if you want to benefit from all the features that we provide.
All right, thanks. Next question is about the comparison with the built-in monitoring of IronPort.
Yeah, so yeah, good question. So yes, since version 9.5 or something, IronPort started to add some monitoring features. So I'll say it's very limited. Right now, I believe there's like 3 alerts that you can set on CPU, RAM, and disk space. So I mean, it's better than nothing, yes. Is it providing you enough visibility in order to be proactive on performance and on any issue and give you all the troubleshooting help that you would need? I don't think so. And the other fact is that this is on a per IronPort base. So if you want something centralized, something that goes within your environment, have metrics stored, make reports, look at also long-term, it won't do the job. So you'll need something like GSX.
Thank you. We have a bunch of questions. How much does it cost? Some GSX customer already asked if there's a separate license for that. So I'll let you answer.
So yes, it's a separate license. It's a new environment, of course. So how much does it cost? I can give you the list price. The list price is $3 per user per year. It's mostly based on subscription, and of course there is volume discount that starts to apply after 2 users. So if you are already a GSX customer, of course you already have other licenses, so you will have also a better volume discount. So again, the list price is $3 per user per year, and with volume discount starting at 2 users.
Excellent. Do you catch also SNMP traps?
So if it's to visualize the information, no. So we'll be able to access any SNMP MIB like we can do for some metrics on IronPort. We're not going to receive SNMP traps, but we can send SNMP trap. So if you want to centralize all the information, maybe you're using something for visualization or you're using SCOM but it's not providing enough application level monitoring, you can send the GSX events or alerts as SNMP traps so that you can centralize this information. Hope the answers the question.
Sure, thank you. And we're just about to go over time with this webinar, so if we did not get the chance to answer all the questions, you can be sure that we'll get back to you in the near future via email or the calls. We thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. An evaluation is about to show up in your browser, so if you can take a moment to provide us with your feedback, that would be great. And thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.